Congressman Swalwell, I want to get your reaction tonight to two things. First of all, what you heard Kevin McCarthy now saying on that audio tape in that discussion with Liz Cheney and others, and also Kevin McCarthy's completely false, lying denial earlier today that he said those things that Rachel Maddow has now proved he said on tape tonight.
Kevin McCarthy was right, Lawrence, and you probably will never hear me say that again, but when he said that, he was right. Donald Trump had just led an insurrection against the Capitol. Police officers would later die. One lost an eye, one lost fingers. We nearly were not able to finish the count. Kevin McCarthy was right. Donald Trump should have resigned. But then Kevin McCarthy went on to vote against impeachment. He went down to Mar-a-Lago for the photo op with the president. And so he has shown from when you listen to what he said publicly that he never said that. And then you compare it to what he said privately, his pledge of allegiance is not to America, it's to Donald Trump. And to your point, he's been caught in a lie. He is a liar. And Kevin McCarthy wants to be Speaker of the House. And the risk of giving Kevin McCarthy the keys to Congress is he has proven himself untrustworthy, but even worse, unable to stand up to Donald Trump. So he doesn't put America first. He puts Kevin McCarthy first. He puts Donald Trump first. And that is dangerous for our country.
In other passages in the book, we discover that Steve Scalise was saying things about how the Republicans now have to consider how to go forward in the post-Trump version of themselves. Steve Scalise sounding immediately after the attack, days after the attack on the Capitol, as if he wanted to leave Trump behind, too.
And that was wise. Steve Scalise also, Lawrence, was correct. And that's what it would have taken to get away from where we are right now. Because I thought someone who was on the floor that day, who sent a text message to my wife, not sure if I would ever see her or our kids again. I thought that we would come out of this united and that unity would be the antidote and that Republicans and Democrats would disavow Trump and Trumpism. But when it's only Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger and Mitt Romney and a few others who have consistently done that, it's not enough. And that's why we are stuck in a point today where democracy is on life support. And until more people speak up publicly the way Kevin McCarthy was privately, we're in a very fragile place for this country.
And this attitude toward Donald Trump and the possibility of turning on Donald Trump went on for days after January 6th. I want to listen again, and we've played this many times on this show because people should never forget this, but this is January 13th on the House floor when Kevin McCarthy says this. Let's listen to this.
The president bears responsibility for Wednesday's attack on Congress by mob rioters. He should have immediately denounced the mob when he saw what was unfolding. These facts require immediate action by President Trump. Accept his share of responsibility, quell the brewing unrest, and ensure President-elect Biden is able to successfully begin his term.
What happened to that?
He backed down because he couldn't stand tall against Donald Trump. It was all talk, and he was more afraid of the mob that his security detail took him away from on January 6th because he was afraid personally he would lose the ability to one day be speaker. And also, just like so many others, it's so much easier to shrink against Trumpism than to stand up like Liz Cheney, Kinzinger, and Romney. And again, Lawrence, to think about, well, what does this mean to everyday Americans? This is a party that is more comfortable with violence than voting, chaos than competency, indecency than integrity. And if they are in the majority, there is no backstop. There's no insurance policy to save the country because, again, you may see them talk about it privately that they don't like what he's doing. But when you need to show the courage and strength to stand up and stop him, they're just absolutely incapable of doing it. So you would effectively have Donald Trump as the Speaker of the House if Kevin McCarthy was elected.
Does this in any way jeopardize Kevin McCarthy's hold on the top spot in the Republican Party in the House?
Lawrence, I'm sure right now they are talking. You've got the faction of the Trump base that will not like that. Again, you have a two-face in Kevin McCarthy. And then, of course, the moderates who have privately told me and many of my colleagues that McCarthy has not done enough to stand up against Trump. So he's really lost, I think, the trust of both sides. And we need a responsible Republican Party. It would really help the country to have that. And I hope that's what emerges, not something even worse and more subservient to Donald Trump.